Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily spiritual podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kostubah Das. Welcome to the show. We're live here. It's Saturday. It's Q&A day. It's a day that people write in their questions, and we try our best to answer them. If we have an answer. Sometimes we just don't have an answer. We try our best.
We usually don't take those ones.
Yeah, the ones we would like to make it sound like we know everything. But welcome, everybody. Good day today. Hi, Miss Mara. What's going on?
Good morning.
Jiva G's in town.
She's in Philly.
She's in town.
Not our town.
She's in a continent.
She's
our
in the country.
continent.
Yeah.
And we're excited for Bhakti Recovery happening, the Bhakti Recovery Day at Super Soul Farm, which is happening October 11th, which is that evening that Wisdom of the Sages retreat starts. If you want to get a full-blown, great Columbus Day weekend, show up. And Jiva G's doing her work, her step study stuff that day. It's all on our website, wisdomofthesages.com, which is also you can also go there if you want to become a supporting community member. We appreciate everybody that supports us. It's a community supported podcast. That's how this thing goes on. Miss Mary, you got some announcements for us?
I do. We should mention there's no show tomorrow.
No show.
We'll be back on Monday at 7 a.m.
Okay.
Also, Wisdom of the Sages is hosting our second annual spiritual retreat to the sacred city of Mayapur,
Boo!
the birthplace of ecstatic kirtan. This retreat can't be missed. Highlights include going to powerful holy places like Lord Chaitanya's birthplace,
Boom!
and Srivas Thakur's house, Jagannath Mandir, and my favorite, which is the Ganga sunset boat rides.
That's your favorite? Or
Yeah,
did
that's my
whoever
favorite.
wrote that copy, it's that their favorite?
No, that's my own favorite.
That's my favorite too.
Yeah.
Riding a boat on the Ganga? Come on.
Go to wisdomofthesages.com to register.
We had a crazy Krishna miracle last time we were on a boat in the Ganga.
Yeah, that was.
We were on a boat in the Ganga, and there's a lot of boats, like little boats, and we went out and did kirtan on the boat, and then we were by another boat, and I was like, wow, the kirtan ended.
This was in Varanasi.
This was in Varanasi. The kirtan ended, and then we just cruised up next to another boat, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting. That looks like our good friend from the Govardhan Eco Village, Hari Priya. And we looked closer, and it was Hari Priya. Hari Priya was on a boat in Varanasi with her family, with I think the ashes of her father.
Yeah.
That was like a Krishna miracle.
That's a crazy Krishna miracle.
You know how many people are in Varanasi?
Crazy
That was crazy. I feel like these crazy Krishna miracle coincidences happen you got to write them down, because then you'll forget how
crazy
how crazy it is and
how miraculous they were.
How miraculous it is, and you'll forget that there's miracles happening on a regular basis, and we'll just chalk it up like, oh yeah, that was a miracle, but I'm just going to forget about that. Oh, another miracle, I'll forget about that. No, note your miracles.
Okay.
Write that one down. Note your miracles. There's no takeaways today. Okay. So we're going to do some questions. Kostubah, you have any announcements? What's up with you?
No announcements. Just happy to get into the questions.
Okay. You don't want to chit chat?
Well, we'll chat about the questions.
All right. What's your first question you want to do?
It's coming from Sugam Shrestha. We
Sugam.
started, we were almost took this on last week, and then we said, you know what, not enough time. So we're doing it right now.
Okay. Here's what Sugam says. Dear Kostubah, Raghu, and Mara. I like when they include Mara. Yeah. I wanted to challenge you both to do something that I have been hearing on the podcast that I disagree with. First of all, Jai Shri Krishna. I'm originally from Nepal, currently in the U.S., and I hope you have another wonderful trip to Nepal. I will. I'm looking forward to it. I've been following your podcast for a long while, and I'm one of the others. Others means you're out there listening to the podcast, but you're not on the Zoom call. So most people are others. However, I've been a bit concerned about the both side-ism you and Kostuba have maintained when briefly touching on the U.S. politics, particularly the idea that both major parties are equally evil. I don't remember ever saying they're both
I
equally
don't remember
evil,
saying that either,
but
we can
maybe I
talk about
did.
it.
Maybe I did. I could find evil things in both parties, and I could find good things in both parties.
But well, you just did exactly what he's. at least, I think it's that kind of talk that got him to say the idea that they're equally evil.
Yeah.
So I think what you just did was not doing that, but I think that's what he's interpreting as doing that. But maybe you have said they're equally evil.
Well, I probably understand where he's going with this question here.
Okay.
While I understand the challenges of taking clear political stands as a podcaster, I expected that your deep understanding of the Mahabharata might have led you to more distinct differentiation between good and evil, as illustrated in that sacred text. After all, I didn't know that Krishna was running for one of these offices. Is Krishna a Republican or Democrat?
I don't understand your point.
My point was, like, it was very obvious Krishna was fighting on the side of Dharma.
So well, okay. Let's read what he says, and we can.
Okay. Mahabharata may have led to more distinct differentiation between good and evil, as illustrated in that sacred text. After all, the Mahabharata teaches us that while no side is perfect, there's often a clear distinction between those who fight for Dharma and those who act in adharma, against Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
In the context of U.S. politics today, do you truly believe both major parties are equally evil? Again, I completely understand that taking a direct stance can be challenging. Like you, I also loathe to affiliate to one side or the other of the political spectrum. But as leaders who teach the wisdom of the Mahabharata, I wish you to refrain from both side-ism. I would even admire a clear guide towards recognizing good versus evil. After all, one of the fundamental teachings of Lord Krishna is knowing when to take a stand for what is right. Let me be utterly clear that I am not at all saying both parties are perfect. Far from it. I'm simply talking about good and not perfect. I hope this doesn't come across as a rant. It's simply a reflection of what I've learned from Lord Krishna's teachings as a lifelong Hindu who was exposed to the teachings of the Mahabharata. Am I wrong about my understanding of the Mahabharata in spirit? If not, in the exact letter of the text? Thank you, and look forward to hearing from you in this matter. In this matter in the future Q&A session. Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.
A lot of nice devotees of Krishna in Nepal. A lot of
Yeah.
nice, beautiful temples in Nepal. I'm going to just jump in. I'm going to let you write, but I'm going to start with something, Kostuba.
All right.
Where
You go ahead, start. Are you going to continue after you start?
Yeah. You know, we've created a system where you have to pick one side. I'm going to vote blue no matter what. Vote blue no matter what, or vote red no matter what. Whereas to say, I like this part of the Republicans and I like this part of the Democrats, it's like you can't even say that. It's not even welcome in the conversation anymore. And although I have distinct opinions, I'm no political expert. I don't know how to run a country. I barely can figure out how to run my household. So, this morning I was talking to Kostuba.
He's not asking that, though. He's asking, can't you recognize like real evil versus like imperfect? Right. I think that's the essence of his question.
I think there's imperfect on both sides. I think there's real evil on both sides. I think there's real good on both sides.
Do you think they're equally evil?
No. That being said, I'm not going to give my opinion politically on the show. What I will do is say that when you choose a political stance, immediately, and I have political opinions, it's not for this show. This show is to keep the main thing the main thing.
Okay.
And the main thing is that we develop connection to our spiritual platform. People may say that as a cop-out. It's not a cop-out. Here's the deal. If you turn away people from the highest thing to preach your lowest, to preach a secondary truth, and it is a temporary truth. But if you push the highest thing and you sacrifice these people, people might just say, oh, Raghunath's voting blue or red, then I'm not going to even listen to this podcast. Then you're getting cheated out of the very highest thing, which is our connection to source. That's our eternal identity. It's not our secondary, temporary identity. We ultimately don't know what the best, what the results of either side will be. And if I sacrifice that highest truth for a secondary truth, you may turn away from people who miss the chance to really get out of material existence. This material existence, it's going on eternally. It's not just in this lifetime, it's lifetimes. And if you miss this window to get out, just to preach some political idea that I don't even have a clue about, I could be, and nowadays, let's face it, you're getting pitched by entertainers. An entertainer is going to tell me who to pick for president, or maybe they have better PR. Oftentimes, people just pick because they want to pick someone because they want to be liked by a community. I'm going to pick this person because this community, but not because they actually even know what's going on, or they know the politics right in front of their face, but not a bigger picture of the political situation. It's almost like Socrates said about the problems with democracy. Socrates said, the problem with democracy, it's like, imagine you're a captain of a ship and you're trying to pick sailors. You have to actually understand the sea. You can't just, you just can't have anybody sailing a boat. They have to understand how to navigate using the stars, how to work on a ship. When we pick people, are we even qualified? Do we even know enough about running a country to pick people who are going to run a country? So this is what Socrates says was the problem with democracy in the first place, is you get a bunch of unqualified people getting sold somebody for less than sold somebody when we don't even know what their qualifications should be in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, I'll stop there. What are
Thank
you
you.
gonna say?
I would say more or less the same thing.
The main thing? Just keep the main thing.
Well,
The main thing.
well, that's definitely, it's in our core values, right? Raghunath and I got together with Linda, and we sat down and we banged out what our core values are. You have any idea what they are, Raghunath?
No, I have them written down somewhere. Do you know? Without looking, do you know, Smarty Pants?
I do.
Okay. I hate those type of meetings. But
You were actually.
let's talk about our core values.
That was like a day, a meeting that went on. We probably put in 4 or 5 hours that day, and Raghunath was literally like in a fetal position, lying in a fetal position.
We're like, we're gonna have an 8-hour meeting to figure out our core values. I was like, can we build a bonfire today? How about a bonfire?
So anyway, we have 3 core values, and the third one is that we're focused on the essence, keeping our mission at the forefront. We avoid diversions such as non-constructive criticism, gossip, and politics.
Ooh,
right? On our podcast and in general, right? Now, there's a reason for that, and we'll get to that. But the Sugam, I appreciate. I feel him. I think if he listens a little more.
I got a lot of his question. I appreciate him too.
Yeah, I think if he, my guess is, I know I've never equated both parties as equally evil. I definitely have my opinions on that. And I don't think Raghunath has either, although you might be a little bit more prone to speaking in such ways where it sounds like maybe that's what you're saying. But I don't think either of us have ever said that. I don't think either of us believe that.
Yeah, you do.
I don't think I
Okay,
do.
go on. You do more than me. I'm very neutral.
You think that we're equally evil, you and I?
I think you're a little bit more evil.
Okay.
A little.
All right, just, but here's the thing, Sugam is saying, can't you take a look at? By the way, his letter was edited down a bit, so he gave examples of how he perceives one side is clearly more evil than the other.
Yeah.
I would say in what we have here in his edited letter, he's kind of saying, come on, just look at the Mahabharata. Isn't it clear that one side was good and one side wasn't? Yeah, that was a very different situation, though. It was like you had Duryodhana on one side, and you had the Pandavas on the other. It was like, yeah, I have no problem saying that one side was more evil, in that context. But let's get down to what's really going on in the podcast. Why Raghunath and I don't like to take political positions on the podcast. Sugam said, while I understand the challenges of taking a clear political stance as a podcaster. Now he didn't say what those challenges are. He might have been alluding to the fact like, oh, you're going to lose certain listeners if you start to speak politically. I wouldn't classify that is why we don't take political stances on the podcast. It's not exactly because we'll lose listeners. It's about the quality of what we're trying to do. It's about what we're trying to bring across here. Yeah, we could get involved in political commentary. What we would rather do is take politics and put it in a spiritual context. Try to understand how it affects our thinking, and really try to present something that has the potential to transform people. Everyone wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to have a better world, it's not just by holding our nose and choosing the which I do. I do hold my nose and go and vote for the party that I feel is, or for the candidate that I feel is less utterly disappointing to me, right? I do that. But if we really want to have real change, we need to uplift our awareness as, particularly like in a democracy, right? Like even on a mundane level, like if we were to have better qualified candidates, and a lot of people say this, I think our country needs much better education, right? We need to know about the Constitution, and we need to know about our history, and we don't. You just stop someone on the street and start asking them questions about the Constitution, how far they're going to get.
People don't even know where Texas is on a map. It's
I
really
know, it's
bad. It's really bad.
It's really, really bad. So then, and that goes to what you were saying about what Socrates was saying, is like, we got totally uneducated people choosing a bunch of clowns.
Choosing the people with the nuclear codes who understand it.
Yes. Yeah, because of, a lot of it has to do, you were talking about celebrity endorsements. Yeah, people are influenced by that kind of thing. I think it has a lot to do with a sense of false ego, like, I'm into this party because I'm a compassionate person, or I'm into this party because I'm a strong, like, no nonsense person, or it's like we vote according to whatever rubs our ego in the right way. And we really don't know what a qualified candidate is. We really don't have a lot to say about character. We really don't have a lot to say about competence. And that's how we're choosing our leaders. So what we're trying to do with this podcast is, in a sense, educate. That's what needs to be done. In a sense, help people understand that we're not going to have a better world as long as we're all convinced that our happiness is derived from things that are external to us. We're not going to have a better world until we learn to find that happiness is something within us, and that we'll find it by living a simpler and kinder lifestyle. And not a simpler and kinder lifestyle that's just like superficial, but a kinder and simpler lifestyle that's really built on a foundation of spiritual knowledge. Knowledge that we're not these bodies, but that we are these eternally blissful sparks of spiritual energy. When we begin to understand that, we'll have the right knowledge, we'll have the right detachment, and the right sentiments to choose a real leader. And we're kind of like desperately in need of this kind of knowledge. So we have decided that on this podcast, we're going to put forward sound. We're going to put forward information that will hopefully help us evolve. You know,
Mm.
and if people want to say that, hey, this is spiritual bypassing. You're really avoiding the tough issues, the real world here and now, with your spiritual talk and all that. I would say, you know what? I'm not the least bit intimidated by that kind of talk. I'm not the least bit moved by it. Both when Rogan and I were teenagers, or just like approaching our early 20s. We made a choice that we looked at we had our teenage years to kind of look at the world around us and figure out what we thought about it, and then make a move
I
to
mean,
do
it
what
was a volatile time where people were actively preaching to us. We were in a scene where people were preaching us to opt into their philosophies. We had anarchists, yippies, hardcore conservatives,
yeah.
um,
And
veganism, vegetarianism, squatters. It
yeah,
was
all
out
that.
of control. We were like, who are we going to pick here?
Yeah, and so, and we also, both of us on our own, came to our decisions that what's actually going to help the world is spiritual knowledge, transcendental knowledge, that this actually has the potency to, we looked at people that were into politics, and we, even then, we're disappointed with people on both sides. We could see that they that until the heart becomes changed, we have a tendency towards violence, and not even just like physical violence, but like violent attitudes towards each other.
Right.
You know,
A lot of
even in
finger
the name of
pointing,
compassion.
a lot of finger pointing, and a lot of hate
Yeah, even in the
goes
name of
out there.
compassion, we think and act in violent ways.
Mm.
And it just keeps stirring it up and stirring up more. So we focused down. We caught onto this message that, yeah, if we actually understand the soul, if we actually understand that we are all have a spiritual equality underneath these costumes, underneath these bodies, and even underneath these minds, that if we really understand that,
Mhm.
that we can have a better world, and we dedicated our lives to it. And I'm more convinced now than I was when I got into it. And if you want to say I'm spiritually bypassing, knock yourself out. I'm not slowing down.
I know we've thought about these things deeply before he
Yeah.
put on a before you got Ray Capo to put on a robe and walk around New York City. I did a lot of deep thinking because that took a lot of guts.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I don't mean to. If I'm ranting a little bit, I'm not ranting against Sugam specifically.
No, yeah.
But I'm just, but we do hear those kind of criticism. I see people just like raging, raging in the and pointing at devotees, right? Pointing at devotees and just like raging on about how we're avoiding the real issues and so on. You know what? I don't buy that for a second.
No way.
Here's an example. Like how are we going to have a population that's capable of choosing a truly compassionate, competent
Mm.
leader if we don't elevate the way that we see things? And here's an example. When Prabhupada in the 60s, he's sitting alone in the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan, and he's translating and writing commentaries on the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? And probably more than anywhere in all of Prabhupada's books, that's where you really hear Prabhupada's kind of like social and political commentary. Like he builds a lot of stuff into those commentaries about how we're meant to live, and what's the problems with the world. And he consistently would point at one thing. And now, for a lot of people may not get this at all, but he makes very solid arguments about why it's true. And a lot of it is backed up by research and science nowadays.
Right.
But he would point to the mass slaughter of animals as a key to why we have such a violent, cruel world. And he didn't he didn't so much speak out against hunting as like he's against it,
Yeah.
but he didn't make that an issue.
Or furriers or things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, he went after the mass slaughter of animals in what today we call factory farms. And the fact is that, like, I forget the statistics, but it's something like, is it something like 10, maybe someone can look it up, but like how many animals are killed how many animals are killed in factory farms a day? I think it's like 25 million animals are killed every day in the United States in factory farms. He was saying that if you understand anything about spirit, if you understand anything about karma, you can understand that that's having a very powerful effect on our lives. And now we can talk about whether that's true or not, but even people that aren't spiritual can understand that's having a huge effect on our ecologically.
They say every day 23 million land animals are killed on factory farms. That's
23 land animals.
266 animals every second. What?
Wow.
That's according to, the
Yeah.
internet.
So now that's not that the question of that is not rising up in our political circle, our political sphere. And why not? It's because people don't know that it's significant, right? We would say if you really want to help the world, just that one move of like ending factory farms would have a tremendous. And again, it's not like just I don't want to minimize the compassion that's involved, right? Like that's essentially why it must be done. But even ecologically, economically, what that could do for us is like huge. But nobody's going to vote for that because nobody has any spiritual knowledge.
Sure.
On one hand, they would be completely horrified if someone killed their dog, and on the other hand, they're completely aloof to the idea that 23 million animals are being killed every day. Um, oh, Mayor, I think you have to mute. You see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
So in any case, what we feel like what we're you may say we're just like trying to empty the ocean with like a thimble or something like that. Well, maybe we are, or maybe the content that we're producing, keeping it focused on the essence. Maybe it will change lives, and maybe it will be a seed that can grow into something much larger. So that's how we're going to use use our platform. Anyone else is happy to use their platform the way they like, but here we want to keep that focus, and there's nothing quicker to get you off that focus than politics.
And I will say that one thing we get a lot of feedback is people tend to learn that there are a lot of shades of gray. We want there to be a black and white.
You're right.
And we want to see that. We want a good and evil. We want some clickbait that says, and I tell you, the networks do this all the time. Kamala will say something, and it takes one clip that she says between the sentence. Trump will say something, take one, and then a group of people hate that clip.
Yeah.
And that person gets known for that tiny little clip out of context.
Right. Yeah.
And it becomes clickbait, and it influences a whole nation. And we've been sold something. We don't even get it that we've been sold these things. Then you've got then they have this other thing where on like Instagram, they said something like 70% or some of the comments are written by bots anyway, who want you to choose a certain way. Crazy. It's like so crazy. Hey, you know what though? Tulsi's here. Okay. And she wrote on the message board about a spiritual solution, and she's going through hell on earth right now. We're going to ask her to
nation,
unmute.
even her city is being bombed right now.
Yeah, she's in Lebanon with her family, with her 2 little girls and her husband. Hey, hey, Tulsi, welcome to the show.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We know you're going through hell. We've been praying for you. Do you want to share what your realizations are? You have bombs getting shot right at you by the neighboring country. I can't even imagine that. I can't imagine Canada shooting bombs over at Syracuse, but this is what's going on. How are you, first of all? How's your family? And what's your takeaway from this question?
Well, how we're doing? I mean, it's quite a situation. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of fear in the air. Sorry, just one second. Okay. Sorry, it's tricky. We're in a place that's safe, apparently, relatively, but the way things are, the way things have been going, it's really hard to say that there is a safe area. That's just, I mean, if you see the news, you can get all of it, but being here, living it, you can see there's no safe place. But this is what the Bhagavatam is saying. There's no place that is safe. The only place that is safe is when you turn to what is eternal, what is stable, and that which is spiritual. Living here and seeing especially all the hate, because it's so clear, the hate that's coming from the other side, and now the hate that is the response of people that are here, especially when there's so much like suffering and pain and all this conflict going on. There's a lot of questions. Why is this happening? How could they be doing this? Why isn't anyone doing anything to help us? And watching it, if you don't have knowledge of the scriptures, I can see how it can be so confusing, so faith destroying, so anxiety ridden. But when you see these things from the eyes of the scriptures, it changes your perspective of anything. Like something Kusuma you say all the time, when these things happen to us, instead of it breaking our faith, we can see it as breaking our faith in the material world. When we're trying to live here and thinking that this world is a place that can really make us happy, it doesn't. It's not going to work until we can get past the greed, the envy, the pride, all these things. We cannot be satisfied. And if we really want to find a solution, it's so important that we understand the basic point. We are not these bodies. We are spirit souls. We're spirit souls. Like if I'm looking at the other side and seeing that they're a spirit soul like me, and then the other side is seeing they're just spirit soul like me, it just like cuts everything to pieces, because everything is based on mine. This is mine. This is yours. This is mine. Oh, this should be mine. This should be mine. But if you take away that, the basic spiritual teaching, then it just changes your whole view of everything completely. And so this is why I genuinely, from someone who's living it, who's in it, who sees the hate, who sees the anxiety, the fear, everything, I see how absolutely critical it is to have this knowledge, because all these emotions, they cloud you completely. But when you really see, I am the soul, and not only I am the soul, but I am soul who is meant to give love and to receive love. And if we can really genuinely feel that, how much differently the world can be in a situation, it can just stop things. Yeah, I mean, I can go on, but
No, thank you.
I'm ready just to shut up and listen to you to direct me in my life. What should I do with my life, Tulsi?
You know what you should do? You should keep doing Wisdom of the Sages, because this is what exactly is needed for people to hear this. The sacrifice that you two, you three, all the team make is amazing. Maybe it doesn't seem like anything, but if even one person can take this knowledge and in their life try to imbibe it, and through their actions try to share with others, it can create ripple effects that can really make a change. You can see the politicians are doing nothing. And this is what really like frustrates people. Like you're talking about the politics in like America, what's happening there is affecting everything here and everything around the world. But all these things, it's not making any change. How come the war is still going on? How come innocent people are dying? Because you're not understanding. We're spirit souls, and we have lost that connection to the divine, and therefore we've lost our connection to each other, to other humans, to other animals, to other life forms. And only when we can see the spiritual essence will that change really happen. It's the only way. So please keep doing Wisdom of the Sages. This is the most important service. The more people can reach, the more people can change. The only way it could really help people. It's the only solution. Even if today they decide to make a peace treaty, saying, okay, we're going to stop the war. Is it going to solve the problem? No, because of the hate that's in people's heart, they're going to want to retaliate. Then the other side is going to hit back, and it's going to keep going and going and going. Because once you're hurt, unless you could get to the root of it, it's going to come out in other ways. But when we get to the essence, that's when the real change happens. So what you all are doing, that's what you should keep doing. And I'm so grateful. The knowledge and the community and the people, this is the best service in the world. Really, thank you so much. This knowledge, Bhakti, is such a blessing. If anything from this, I just am absolutely convinced that this is what the world needs. Hare Krishna, I'm sorry.
Haribo.
Thank you.
Ah,
Tess.
that's so beautiful.
Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.
In a major way, the countries are feeling resentment. They want revenge. They have spite in their hearts. That happens on a micro level too with us as individuals. So
Right.
yeah, this type of internal management that the Bhagavatam teaches, very important message. And we think we're gonna do something with our thought processes of revenge. It's never going to work like that. It's never going to work. We have to become peaceful ourselves. We have to become free from envy, resentment, anger, spite, etc. At that same time, things change. We've seen it happen in our lifetime, Kostuba. These, Prabhupada and these acharyas, they spoke this message of that everybody's a spirit soul. If you say everybody's a spirit soul, even the animals nowadays, people are like, okay, that sounds good. It's like sort of a reasonable thing to say. If you said that in 1969, you're like, a dog is a spirit soul. A dog has a soul. Give me a break.
Right.
And the care and the commitment towards animals as beings anymore has radically changed in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Even racism. What racism? People say racist things, problems with racism today. Guess what? 1975, exponentially worse. 1965, exponentially worse. Times are changing for the better, believe it or not. Times are changing for the better. Things are getting better because their spiritual roots have been watered, and people are opting into it more and more and more.
Wherever there's positive change, there's spiritual understanding behind it. The understanding of the true equality on the basis of the soul is operating behind it. And so we just want to keep focused on that. You could say, why don't you point towards one candidate that you feel is better? What we'd rather do is work to helping people become qualified, all of us, to become more qualified to choose good leaders. And
then
that's sorely missing.
And then maybe a good leader step up that's qualified.
Yeah. That's
uh,
sorely missing in the world.
I think when Kostuba and I were young, we heard everybody's side, and then we heard the devotees. And then and when we'd argue, well, what about racism? What about animal rights? It's not like we didn't think about these things.
Yeah.
We thought deeply about these things. And the devotees gave such a great answer from the Bhagavatam. You're trying to correct the wrongs of this world from an external way. It's the equivalent of a boil. I don't know if anyone's ever gotten a boil. It's like a pimple that hurts so bad. If you got a boil on your butt, you couldn't even sit down. And I've had one, but it's like blowing. But if you were supposed to, okay, forget the butt analogy, but suppose you have one in your hand, it hurts so much. A gigantic pimple, it hurts so much. But if you were to blow on it, like very softly,
It's like hot, huh? It feels hot.
It's just painful. It's just like it's like throbbing and painful.
Okay.
And if you were to blow on it, it feels cooling.
For a moment.
It feels cooling for a moment, for as long as you can blow, but it doesn't make the pain go away. It's like blow. They said all your efforts to change this world, you think we're spiritually bypassing, all your efforts are blowing on a boil. They're actually not changing anything. They'll go away for a moment, perhaps, go down a little, and then they flare back up somewhere else. So you have to get to the root of the disease. And when we heard that, we were like, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think ultimately the root of the disease for a boil has to do with the blood, right?
Yeah, the blood is it's a virus. It travels. Even if you were to lance one, it's beyond lancing the boil. It's actually in the bloodstream.
And the blood has a lot to do with what you eat. Right. So in other words, what we're trying to do is put out the right content for consuming. That'll create the right, what do you call it?
pH in the blood.
Yeah, the right pH, so that we can actually be healthy, and healthy in the way that we think, healthy in the way that we choose leaders, healthy in the way that we lead, healthy in the way that we relate to one another. We just want to put that out there and not get mixed up, not get sidetracked into the on a lower level, on a political level.
On a political level. Yeah. Yep.
Let's get the spiritual level set right, and then we'll be able to handle the political levels and all the other levels as well, right? The health level, all the other levels would be addressed by that.
Sometimes you can have a completely horrific spiritual, political level, yet the people practicing bhakti within that community are very, very high. We know a lot of devotees from Iran
Yeah.
that you cannot practice bhakti in Iran. If you're to practice bhakti, you are getting taken away, and you disappear. It was like before the wall came down in Russia. You couldn't do it. Matter of fact, there was a whole underground bhakti movement during the Soviet Union. And guess what? These people were very, very high spiritually. We have so many so-called freedoms, but maybe it gives no impetus for us to be very focused on our spiritual game. You're going to chant your rounds today? I'm going to go. I got some other plans. Go for a bike ride. Or walk in the wood. We might have a lot of other diversions in our so-called free country. So my point is the political situation, and Prabhupada's guru made this point to Prabhupada when he was a young man.
Yeah.
It will not wait. The spiritual urgency cannot wait for anything. We can't wait till India becomes free. That politics will always change. It'll get tighter and more restrictive, or it'll break down and become looser. But there's a spiritual urgency now. Why? First of all, because your life is very short. Things change. Kingdoms crumble. New kingdoms get built. But our spiritual vibrancy has to be there throughout the ups and downs of whoever's running our nation.
And I think we should be clear when we're saying spiritual knowledge and so on. We're not talking about some lovey-dovey granola, will of the wisp, ephemeral kind of idea. We're talking about really practically understanding our own nature and the nature of everyone else, and based on that very profoundly influencing how we respect one another. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about spiritual knowledge. How we learn to respect one another on the basis of knowledge. That's what, when we say spirituality, that's what we're talking about. And we are not educated in that enough. That is not being taught enough. We want to step forward and represent that. We want to take all our energy and put it into getting that kind of message, that kind of education out into the world. That's what we're trying to do.
People throw this word around a lot too. Be kind, just try to be kind. You have to learn to be kind.
We don't know what it
Stop
means
telling
to
the
be kind
world
always.
to be kind. You be kind. Get rid of your judgments. Learn how to be kind. It's one thing to be kind to people who are nice to you. Be kind to people that can't stand you. Learn how to extend love to people that don't even like you. It's not an easy thing. You got to actually evolve. It takes work.
Yeah.
And the Bhagavatam is giving that process, how to become above this concept of friends and enemies.
Right. There we go.
Don't blow on the boil. Water the roots. What are the roots of the boil? No, what are the roots of the tree?
Okay. Why don't we take on question number 2?
That was a great one. Tulsi should be on the show more.
That was great. Yeah. Appreciate it. So we have Tulsi, for those that don't know, that's little Karuna's mother.
That's Karuna, the 10-year-old, 11-year-old's mom.
A family that we deeply love.
And if you weren't watching this on YouTube or on Zoom, the kids kept on busting into the bathroom while she was trying to talk to us.
And because it's very sensitive, because she's trying to keep the mood there as
Keep the mood there as Shanti.
Yeah.
Okay. What do we got? Yeah. Next question, sir.
number 2.
Oh, this is from Prabhat Singh. Please pardon me for any grammatical or semantic errors in this email. English is not my first language. Also, pardon me for writing such a long email. I'm from Central India, and am a regular listener. I really appreciate the podcast. My family was religiously inclined to Krishna since I was a kid. My parents took initiation, and we got into the movement when I was 19 years old. So it's easy to connect to spiritual messages and knowledge, but sometimes it gets overwhelming, and I feel like most of it is being missed by me, or that I'm unable to fully appreciate the value of it. So my question is, How can I value this more? Also, being in India, it's a cutthroat competition of academics amongst the population of students. Due to this, every child is, if not pressurized. We can't even imagine, Gustuba, you know,
Oh, it's very heavy. But he said, if not pressurized, at
if
least
at least expected to perform better than others.
that's
And
pressure.
yeah, that's called pressurized. Yeah. But because I was never pressurized, but because my cousin elders excelled, it really kicked up the expectations from me in the family. Currently, I am a doctor aiming for residency exams, but I'm just an average student. I have always been a disappointment in the matters of grades, except for the one time I passed the medical entrance test. I feel a constant need for validation on the basis of my performance, and it has turned into a behavioral pattern where all of my actions are all either acting for praise or acting for sympathy. Whoosh. These parents doing a number on kids. To my disappointment, the same thing has creeped into my spiritual life. I could not ask this question in detail to the mentors I have here because that would go against my behavior of acting as if I have my act together. It gets very bad at times, and I wonder if I have just been a pretender all my life. Even even in this email, my thoughts are maybe I'll get some sympathy and some validation from this answer. Due to this behavior being deep rooted in me, my chanting, my reading of Shastra, my sadhana, all get enveloped into this acting for praise or acting to get sympathy. I feel this preventing me from moving forward, both in material as well as spiritual life. How can I root out this? How can I root this out from deep within myself to genuinely practice devotion and also study ardently in my academic career? What a great question. Mara, what do you think I'm
Yeah.
going to say about this? Do you know? I'm going to direct him right to Jiva G and the Bhakti Recovery Group. This is a type of like almost like trauma from childhood, a pressurized trauma to achieve, and it affects our sadhana. Like it affects our regular hearing and chanting on the deepest level. It's desperately searching for validation from this world because we didn't get it from our sources, our care providers at a young age. I highly recommend you check out the Bhakti Recovery Group for that. It's goes hand in hand with what we're doing. I wish I could transport you here to our Bhakti recovery thing we're doing on the 11th. But in the meantime, you can go onto their website and listen to some classes and see if anything resonates with you. It's classic codependency issues. And all these traumatic things that happen to us as a child, they affect us in our adult life oftentimes, and it can affect who we are and showing up spiritually as well. Kostub, you want to jump on any of this? You see
Sure.
some.
When I heard this, I did think, it's a shame that we didn't have Dunya around today. She could have also, I think, helped a lot with this. Neither Raghunath or I are trained, certified counselors in this.
You got problems with trees or wood? I can help.
You're
Part-time
not trained in
botanist
that
and a
either.
wood guy. I'm a wood guy.
You're right. Okay, but what we can do is try to point you in the direction to maybe seek some help there. And also just kind of share what we understand about the mind from the Bhakti Shastras, right? And that's important. I noted I sympathize. In America, at the stage we're at when we were growing up, we just do what we want to do.
Yeah.
And the parents, it's like
They
we
have
just
to
tell
step
them,
back.
yeah, but it's not the same kind of pressure. There were other types of pressure and stuff. It was there for sure, but this type of pressure in India is very strong. It's very weighty. It weighs on someone, and I feel that in his letter. I want to draw our attention, and Prabhat's attention to just some of the phrases that he used. I kind of underlined them. He said, "I have always been a disappointment." Right. I've always been a disappointment in matter of grades. There's other ways that could have been phrased, like I've never really excelled in grades, but the fact that you express it that way, is indicative of something. I've always been a disappointment. You say, I feel a constant need for validation. I have been a pretender all my life.
He's been shamed. His whole life has been shamed.
Yeah. Due to this behavior being deep rooted in me. So here's the thing, and then he's asking, how can I root this out from deep within myself to generally practice devotion? And here's just one thing I can share as a person that's not a certified counselor, but as a person that is a practitioner of Bhakti. This behavior is not deep rooted in you. It's deep rooted in your mind.
Right.
Right. And when you said, I feel a constant need for validation, you don't feel a constant need for validation. Your mind is programmed to feel a need. And so the reason why I bring this up and why I feel it's significant is, dear Prabhat, due to conditioning that you've experienced in life, probably very well intentioned, in a sense, training that you've received in the family that you grew up in and in the atmosphere that you grew up in, because this is very common throughout India, that the way that it's set in your mind is not entirely helpful and is causing you some constant feeling of stress and anxiety and feelings of depression maybe, or I'm sure there's ways to clinically, kind of like categorize this probably, but a sense of self-loathing, like you're disappointed in your own self. And now you're saying it's crept, that same mindset is crept into your spiritual practices. So everything that you're doing is you're trying to seek that same validation or sympathy that you're seeking in your occupation or in your studies. I feel like that you may not be able to just walk up to whoever's putting this pressure on and saying, I'm not taking this pressure anymore and things are going to be different now. I get it that like there's social constructs that are like strong and that might be misunderstood and it might create a rift in your relationships that would be that would be costly for you, that would be really significant and create another type of problem in your life. But here's two things that I'm going to suggest is, one, recognize that this is how your mind is programmed, but always meditate that you are that pure spiritual energy underneath, right? That you are a pure spark of spiritual energy where, you said, I feel like I've been a pretender all my life. Here's news for you, Prabhat. We all have, until we give up our false ego, we're all being pretenders. We're all putting up some kind of charade, and you're feeling that very profoundly. Don't feel that you're necessarily so different than everybody else out there, right? So that's there. But realize that, yeah, we are all these sparks of spirit, seeing the world through a mind and identifying with that mind. Don't think that you are searching for validation. Say that I'm working with a mind that's programmed to call for validation all the time. Once you begin to think about it in those terms, you become the observer of your mind. You're separating yourself from your mind, and that's a very significant step towards truth and towards, freedom from all of this. My mind has been programmed in a particular way, not me, right? And then the more that you're living in that space, identifying yourself as spirit and not as the programming within the mind, that's where you're opening up your connection to Krishna, not on the mental level, but on the spiritual level. And you can have very deep conversations with God in your heart on that level. Don't talk to God through your mind, right? Push your mind aside and talk to God soul to soul. And those conversations are going to give you tremendous relief. You know, that's where you can, that's where you're now existing on the spiritual level. You're actually engaging on the spiritual level. It's entirely refreshing, you know, it's entirely enlivening. And when that connection becomes stronger in your life, when you deal with the people that are putting the pressure on you in life, you can find a way to, what's the word I'm looking for? To satisfy them as best you can without it becoming all-consuming, right? Without it requiring all of your energy and all of your mental bandwidth and all of your emotional bandwidth. You dedicate the effort that you need to satisfy those people in a practical way. And meanwhile, in the background, you have your relationship on the spiritual level. You know, you'll begin to, I hope and I feel that you could begin to actually have that genuine practice of devotion that you're asking about. How can I root this out from deep within myself to genuinely practice devotion? It's not deep within yourself, it's deep within your mind. Set your mind aside and feel that devotion. Set that mind aside and practice your devotion. Set that mind aside and connect with God in your heart. Have those conversations, you know, and you'll feel something real, I think.
Prabhat, there is no amount of material validation, even from parents or family members, that will make you feel like I've got it together. Even if they all did validate you, it still would not make you feel connected and whole. Krishna already validates you. You're already valid from birth. That's where you get your worth from birth. Krishna validates you. And as you work towards devotion, what's it take to actually get reciprocation from Krishna? It takes patram pushpam palam toyam, just a little bit of offering with love. You're valid, man. You are valid. What other people think of you is none of your business.
You know,
I say dive into this shame thing, which is all over India. It's all over America too. This is what Bhakti recovery deals with, because it's at the heart of all addiction as well as codependency.
You know, you got to such an important point when we're talking about practicing spirituality, because Prabhat also said, to my disappointment, the same thing has creeped into my spiritual life. Then he says this is really revealing too, and really important. And you know, it's great that Prabhat can just recognize this and say this, because a lot of us will live this without identifying it and out facing it and confronting it. But he said, I could not ask this question in detail to the mentors I have here, because that would go against my behavior of acting as if I have my act together. That's a breakthrough right there, Prabhat. You know, like that's a truth that a lot of people practicing spirituality maybe never really get to, or they take way too many decades to get to. But that idea, you know, as Raghunath was just saying, what does it require? Patram pushpam, just a little offering. Yeah, offering done with sincerity, right? Without any pretension, without pretending I'm something that I'm not, right? Bhakti is only going to happen on that level.
He has his act together. When you start asking
you got your act together,
like this, you got your act together. I'm here to validate you, Prabhat.
That's right. That's right.
You're very valid. You need some validation, you call me up. I'm going to tell you how good you're doing.
Okay.
Okay?
There we go.
Because right now you're searching out other people to shame you.
Okay. That's it for today, Raghunath.
That's it for today. Woohoo! Now.
Prabhat's doing good.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Remember, Shamesters, if you felt shame, check out Bhakti Recovery. It's happening October 11th at Super Soul Farm. Super Soul, the last retreat of the season, Wisdom and Sages retreat. Hey, make sure, I think there's like a bed left, 2 beds left. You should reach out to us. It's almost sold out. Looking forward to it. And the last day, the Sunday, we're having a Saber retreat. So if you want to come for that day, or if you want to just stay longer that day and help, we're doing planting and wood splitting and stacking and gardening, flipping, burning. You got to email Mara if you're going to do that. Email Mara. What's your email, Mara?
Wisdom of the Sages 108 at Gmail.
Wisdom of the Sages 108 Gmail. Now, if you're an other out there and you want to join us live on Zoom, because it's fun, Email Mara again, wisdomofsages108@gmail.com, and she'll send you the secret codes to enter into our spiritual coven.
Or join our Sage community platform.
Or join the Sage Community Platform, and then you're
Another
in.
way to say
You get a gold ticket right in there.
What exactly is a coven? Is it only for witches?
Coven is for witches, is where us witches. Oh, they condemn us to be witches. We're just spiritualists. It's the spirit in everything. We're white witches, Kastuba. You,
Are we?
my friend, are a white witch.